How you doing? Hi, YouTube. How you doing? How you doing? YouTube, welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favorite Show experience. I just finished welcoming the the Urban View family back from our commercial break. We got a lot to get into today, and I'm calling today's episode, I Freakin Told You So. Okay, I Freakin Told You So. First things first, let's get into what's happening in Jamaica. As a lot of you know, Hurricane Melissa has devastated Jamaica. I have family members there that I have not yet heard back from. My family is actively trying to figure out who is where and where is who, and trying to understand the depths of what's going on. And entire communities, quite frankly, have been wholly uprooted. Lives have been drastically changed overnight. And if you are wondering about how you can help, the government of Jamaica launched an official relief and recovery portal, and that portal is at supportjamaica.gov.jm, supportjamaica.gov.jm. Please do consider. I'm going to ask the entirety. I know the whole Caribbean is reeling right now, but the Pan-African community, I'm talking, yes, because Cuba is getting it right now as we speak, but I need the Pan-African community to consider what it is you can do to help these African island nations, because quite frankly, we are going to need it. I saw that there had been a request out to the Americans for some support. Who knows? Because, according to the leadership here, that's a S-hole country. So who knows if that support will be coming. But I do know that if you are a part of the Ghanaian massive, the South African massive, the Nigerian massive, you have the Burkina Faso massive, I am asking for those leaders in those countries who have the capacity to support, if you do, to please do what, I'm sure you're already doing these things, but I'm hoping that people throughout the Pan-African diaspora will see the need here and will show up, because it's going to be significant. It's going to be significant. I will keep y'all updated on that. I got to move on, because otherwise the tears and the water and all that, and we got to move on. You got to move on. But let's talk about the news. Let's talk about the news for the day. Lots to get into today, because today's topic is I freaking told you so. Mass layoffs are here, and not from the federal government, right? Paramount is laying off people. They just merged. They just had a merger. Massive layoffs happening there. Amazon laying people off. PricewaterhouseCoopers laying people off. UPS planning to lay off more people. They already laid off 48,000 people this year alone. And Target, as Dr. Carr said this morning, people still working at Target. Target also doing layoffs. And so that's not the part where I said I freaking told you so. That part is coming in just a minute. I'm just giving you the lay of the land, because right now there's a phrase that keeps running through my mind, and it was inspired by one Maya Angelou. When the demons of hell show you who they are, believe them. Do y'all remember all the times that I talked about Project 2025 and how I would describe it as a Republican wish list? A Republican wish list that was basically designed to get rid of all of the Democratic programs that had been established since the Great Depression. Now, this is something that some people pushed back on, but I said very firmly, the only reason that white nationalists needed a Project 2025, which they've been working on since 1981 when they issued the first mandate for leadership out of the Heritage Foundation under Ronald Reagan's administration, the only reason they needed a project of any sort was to undo the gains of the New Deal. Now, some of you may be thinking, what is the New Deal? I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to share my screen with you all. I'm going to be referencing an article out of Encyclopedia Britannica. For those of you who are young, Encyclopedia Britannica is basically how my generation, Gen X and older, that's how we did research without the internet, right? And so Encyclopedia Britannica, these are trustworthy sources. And so I'm looking here, and now all of you who are in YouTube, you can see my screen. This is an entry on the New Deal. Let's talk about what the New Deal is. This is going to be a little bit of a history lesson, and it really does matter. The New Deal was, as you see here, a domestic program of U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt that took place between 1933 and 1939. And it took a lot of steps to bring about immediate economic relief and reforms in industry, agriculture, finance, water power, labor, housing, and it vastly increased the scope of the federal government's activities. Now, this was a really big deal. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because I want y'all to actually see me, what I'm talking about. This was a really big deal because the phrase the New Deal was taken from a speech that FDR had given when he was nominated for president. He was a Democratic candidate. He was nominated in July the 2nd. And he basically then went on to win the election. The Democrats swept that election because the American people were really pissed off. They were pissed off at Republicans because Republican policies like the tariffs that they were implementing in the late 1920s and the robber baron laissez-faire approach to industry were destroying the American people. It was really destroying the global economy. And in 1929, we had this thing happen that was called the stock market crash, and it triggered the Great Depression. Now, this was a situation where a whole lot of people were struggling. Black people was also struggling struggling too, but because of white people's racism, black people couldn't keep their money in white people's banks. And so when the banks went under and couldn't nobody get no more money out and they lost all their money, white men who were business people, they was committing mass suicide. It was like a really terrible time because they could not handle the pressure of massive poverty being thrust upon them. Black people was like, well, we done always been poor, mess around with you people, so we all right, we gonna make it happen. I mean, it wasn't good for black people, but it was really, really bad for the whites. Now, this phrase, the New Deal, came out of FDR's speech that he gave at his nomination, where basically he was talking about a Democratic promise of a New Deal for the forgotten man. And again, people were really, really angry at the Republicans because Republicans can't lead. And laissez-faire styles to economics was basically what Republicans were pushing. And laissez-faire, think of it like this. You know how like Peter Thiel and Elongated Muskrat and NVIDIA and all these companies can basically just pay the government to do whatever the hell they want and then don't nobody check them and then they can fire people. They can do whatever the hell they want. That was happening back then. But these were people who were called robber barons. And robber barons were basically asshole billionaires of that time who essentially they amassed a whole lot of money. They were ruthless. They had horrific business practices. You would be working in their factory and your arm could get chopped off and they'd be like, damn, you should have moved your arm, son. Or you would be like in a chemical factory and they would be like, hey, I'm gonna need you. Actually, that's the wrong accent. These weren't black people. These white people. They were like, hey, I need you to go dip your fingers in that big old pot of chemical stew and dig out the thing that dropped in there. And you would be like, hey, I really don't want to do that because I might lose a finger because that chemical stew is really bad for people's bodies and stuff. And they'd be like, do you want this job? And then you would have to do it because there were no protections. You had a situation where you were working 12 hours a day. I'm talking about white people. You'd have to work 12 hours a day in these factories. You had your children who had to work alongside you. You could not have a weekend. None of these things existed. And remember, it all makes sense when you consider the fact that the reason that American labor was set up this way was because America was used to the free labor that they forcibly extract from Africans who were enslaved. So that was the nature of business at that time. It sucked. You didn't have weekends. You didn't have vacation days. You had none of these things. And so when FDR comes into office with the New Deal for the forgotten white man, basically this was extraordinarily exciting to the Americans. And most of his New Deal legislation took root in the first 100 days of his presidency. That's why this whole marker of the first 100 days means something in the American consciousness, because the Democrat who was in charge of this New Deal effort in the first 100 days, listen to what he did. In fact, let me share the screen again. Because y'all be acting like sometimes I be stretching the truth, and I don't do that. Here's what the New Deal included. Much of the New Deal legislation, as you can see here, I'm reading directly, was enacted within the first 3 months of the presidency. The administration's objective was to alleviate the suffering of the nation's huge number of unemployed workers. Agencies like the Works Progress Administration and the Civilian Conservation Corps were established to dispense emergency and governmental aid, to provide temporary jobs, employment on construction projects, youth work in the national forest. And I explain more of this in the podcast, which you guys will get a chance to hear later on today. But basically, this was a massive creation of a welfare program. And the WPA gave 8.5 million white people jobs. Encyclopedia Britannica don't say white, but it was white people. They had construction projects, and listen to what they were able to accomplish. Within this legislation, 650,000 miles of roads were laid. In fact, most of the roads you're riding on right now had their roots in the New Deal. 125,000 public buildings were built, 75,000 bridges, 8,000 parks. Under its aegis, the Federal Art Project, Federal Writers Project, Federal Theater Project. These were all Democratic programs. Before 1935, the New Deal focused on revitalizing the stricken business and agricultural economy because those communities were devastated. They talked about the fact that in the New Deal, they had authority to shape industrial codes. That means regulations, which we all know means rules. Rules that govern trade practices, wages, hours, child labor, collective bargaining. The New Deal also tried to regulate the financial hierarchy to prevent the repetition of the stock market crashing and all the massive bank failures that followed. This meant that the FDIC was finally created, because the reason the FDIC matters is because if you had money in the bank and your bank went under, you just lost your money. Now we have an FDIC that allowed for the government to insure up to $250,000 in any bank account. So if you have $250,000 or less in an account and your bank goes under, the government has guaranteed you're going to get that money. That was a Democratic thing. It was a Democratic thing. They created the Federal Reserve System, the Securities and Exchange System. They created the Agricultural Adjustment Act. All of these pieces of legislation that created welfare for Americans. What? Americans. This matters because the Democrats were really in their bag in this moment. doing the damn thing. And the Republicans hated it. Because remember, the Republicans were the party of laissez-faire. The Republicans were the party of the robber barons. And the Republicans tended to believe, quote, in limited government and laissez-faire policies. So they disliked the New Deal's high level of intervention in the economy. And they talk about all the ways that the Republicans were so angry that the Democrats were providing these social service programs that were benefiting the people and were benefiting the country. And as a result of it, they began using some rather curious language. Language like budget deficits. It costs too much money to do all of this goody-goody stuff that the Democrats want to do. They said that the money was being wasted on fraud and abuse. This is where that language began coming from. And ever since the 1930s, the Republicans have hated these Democratic programs. Now, some of y'all would hear me say that, and you would think Lurie is being so hyperbolic right now. Some of y'all would hear me say that and say, there's no way that the Democrats have these programs that the Republicans actually hate. Lurie's really stretching the truth. Well, listen to Mango Mussolini, and I'm sorry that mangoes are getting a bad shot right now. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. This is Donald Trump talking in his own words, about the Democratic programs, these New Deal programs that he is thrilled that the government shutdown finally allows the Republicans to get rid of. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, please.
Do you feel any urgency to end the shutdown in the next week, 2 weeks, or would you be fine if it stretches into November and then toward the holidays with folks not getting paid?
Well, shutdown, we've had many, many shutdowns. And
Mostly
this is a shutdown that shouldn't have happened. A group of people brilliantly decided to make it after the election. I said, thank you very much. In other words, give it to Trump instead of Biden. So it shouldn't happen. And likewise, debt ceiling shouldn't have. But the great big, beautiful bill solved the debt ceiling problem for
Is there a point where you would reach out to...
No. Here's what's happening in the shutdown, though. Honestly, can I put it in plain words for you? And you're a smart guy, so you'll understand, but a lot of people don't. The Democrats are getting killed on the shutdown.
Pay attention.
Because we're closing up programs that are Democrat programs that we were opposed to.
I freaking
so
told
we're being
you.
and they're never going to come back in many cases. So we're being able to do things that we were unable to do before. So we're closing up programs that are Democrat programs that we wanted to close up or that we never wanted to happen.
What I tell you.
And now we're closing them up. And we're not going to let them come back. The Democrats are getting killed. And we're going to have a list of them on Friday, closing up some of the most egregious, socialist, semi-communist, probably not full communist, we're saving that for New York, but semi-communist programs. And we're closing them up. We're not closing up Republican programs because we think they work.
There it is.
So the Democrats are getting killed, but they're not telling the people about that. I say it, I haven't said it probably as bluntly as I just said it. But
thank you for saying
So we are closing up Democrat programs that we think that we disagree with, and they're never going to open again. Thank you very much.
I told you so. Y'all know I love to say it. I told you so. It's my first language. I told you so. They don't like the Democrat programs that most of this country relies upon. Every program or service that they wanted to cut or that they are cutting as a result of Project 2025 was a New Deal program or the outgrowth of one. The food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, affordable housing, education, student loans, grant programs, job training programs. They hate programs that help people because they believe in laissez-faire robber barons. They said, if I can't sell it to you, if I can't make no money off of giving it to you, you can't have it. They are greedy sons of bitches who want to profit from everything from your birth to your death and everything in between. They're kind of like, and I said this in the podcast, they're like, y'all know what a succubus is? They're kind of like, a succubus is a demon that basically it's in a variety of mythologies. And essentially, if you get in a relationship with a succubus demon, they take your sexual energy and you think you having just orgasms and skeeting your way to glory. But basically, every time they engage with you, they are draining your life force. And at the end of your engagement with the succubus demon, they got all your power and you die. These people are like economic succubus demons that gain life from draining us of everything so that they can make more money. And again, that's when you die. I want you to, however, take a look at what the death looks like. Okay? Because he's talking about the fact that we're getting rid of Democratic problems. They're never going to come back again. But what he does not realize, or what he does not care, he fucking knows it. What he doesn't care about is the fact that it is going to cause a sort of death for massive amounts of people. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. D.L. Hughley shared this clip, and these are mothers who are navigating what it's going to look like because mamas know in a couple of days ain't gonna be no more food stamps. They are already trying to make the food stamps they have stretch. And as I talk about in the podcast, when you look at the numbers of money you cannot make in order to get food stamps, these are poor people. Take a listen to this video clip. These are mothers. Hold on. Did I get it right? Okay, yes. Amina, if you could start the clip, we're going to hear it now.
I just finally got confirmation that food stamps is officially cut for next month. About 2 months ago, I stopped eating dinner almost every night of the week so that my boyfriend and I could have enough food left over to have lunch the next day. This was before
This is a white woman speaking.
we were about to lose our food stamps. Mind you, we both work.
I don't think that we
This is another
really
white woman
realize
speaking.
the depths that this is, the damage that this is going to do, but the women, the mothers, and the families, but the mothers especially, who are going to go without meals so their children don't have to. I know that I will absolutely be one of those mothers.
But because we have children and because aftercare and before care is too expensive,
It's another white
I've taken a job that's basically minimum wage so that I can be there to pick up my kids. I cannot fathom what we're going to do without that food stamp money. Because if I already couldn't eat dinner with that food stamp money,
Sitting here wondering what families will do the next
I'm
6
so
months
tired of
without
seeing
food
people
stamps,
say
is the
like,
caption.
oh, well, maybe if you had a job, you could get your groceries, or, you know what I'm saying, you wouldn't have to depend on stamps. I work full time. Thank you. And I do rely on stamps because guess what? It's not enough money in this economy for me to be able to pay bills
This is a
and get stuff
sister
that we
speaking.
need and provide for my 2 kids. So yes, I depend on stamps. And I have a full-time job. So please know that people out here depend on stamps is not because we out here just mooching off the government. It's because we literally need that to provide for our family.
I work hard every single day. I get up every single day and clean houses, and I still rely on food stamps to feed my 6 children because the prices are so high. It's unrealistic to think about not having food stamps. Next month, I'm so terrified because 6 babies are always eating. Plus myself, I eat about 1 meal a day, but still.
How you gotta justify I eat about 1 meal a day, but still? What kind of an evil-ass world are we living in when that is your reality? Now, the reason I was pointing out for the Urban View audience, those of you who are not watching the video, which of these mothers was white and which of these mothers was black is because of something I read on Threads by a sister by the name of Cepheus1999, Sephius 1999. And she said, black folks, let's talk. When the media start looking for people to report on about SNAP benefits, don't let them interview you. They want the image of who's on SNAP to be the faces of black people when the people that use SNAP are white people, specifically white women. So I'm a fan of people getting on socials and sharing their own story. But if ABC, CBS, Fox come knocking at your door talking about, hi, we just wanted to interview you to see if you could talk to us about your experiences with not getting SNAP, slam the dough in their face. Because what they're trying to do is paint an image that it is black people who need these benefits, which similar to what happened in Hurricane Katrina, when all you show is black people in need, ain't nobody coming to help. We know how the psychology of this shit works. Make it make sense. And so one of the things that we have to get clear about is that you have to be poor, working poor if you're working, in order to get food stamp benefits. Now, I was curious about this because I'm like, well, how much can you make if you're trying to get SNAP benefits right now? And so I'm going to share my screen again for those of you who are watching on YouTube. I went to my state's page. New York is where I pay taxes. New York is where I vote. And so New York, if you are a family of 2, you cannot make more than $2,292 a month, and if you want to qualify for food stamps. That means you have to make less than $27,504 a year if you're going to qualify for food stamps if you've got 2 kids. If you've got 3 kids, if you're a family of 4, you can make $3,483 a month. Do you know how fucking poor you gotta be in the state of New York? But let's look at Alabama, because I'm like, New York is expensive. In the state of Alabama, if a family of 2 needs food stamps, you cannot make more than $1,704 a month if you want to qualify for food stamps. These are people who are working. These are working families. And even if they're not working, a significant portion of the people on food stamps are children. 40% of the food stamp recipients are children. And there were some people who called. A person who called the show yesterday. Hey, Tim, I hope you're doing all right, friend. I appreciate you for listening. I really do. And for giving us an opportunity to have that conversation. But Tim said, well, the Democrats should just vote for a clean CR. Like, it's the Democrats' fault that the government is shut down. And so I had to walk Tim and all of us through an analysis. And I asked Tim, who owns the House? Who owns the Senate? Who owns the White House? And then Tim said, Republicans, Republicans, Republicans. He was honest about that. I appreciated that. And another caller then called up and said, why do you think the Democrats have to vote alongside with the Republicans to keep the government open? And Tim was talking about the fact that he says, well, you need 60 votes in the Senate. You know what you don't need 60 votes in the Senate for? Anything Republicans want. As Marjorie Taylor Greene has said, because yes, I am quoting Marjorie Taylor Greene. God help us, what has the world come to? But Marjorie Taylor Greene says, quote, the Republican-controlled House used the nuclear option today to override the 60-vote rule. In fact, I'm sorry, let me share the screen again, because I want y'all to see with your own eyes. The Republican-controlled House used the nuclear option today to override the 60-vote rule in order to confirm over 100 Trump nominees, yet continues to claim Democrats are causing the shutdown. Spoiler alert, the Republicans in the Senate can also use the nuclear option to reopen the government and override the Democrats, just like they literally did today to confirm Trump's nominees. They don't need the Democrats to reopen the government. And as we talked about yesterday, they don't need the government to be reopened in order to make sure people have access to food stamps. Food stamps have never been threatened by a government shutdown because never before has there been a succubus economic demon running the fucking nation. I shouldn't say never before. That's how we got slavery and genocide. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. So the solution, because you know what's going to happen. Donald Trump this might happen, even though he said what he said in that video clip, might try to swoop in and save the day. Might try to, cause all the trouble and then swoop in and act as though he's the one that's got the solution. But I was listening to a number of commentators and I found this sister by the name of Cindy Noir. She's dope. I follow her now on Instagram. Cindy Noir had some insight about what it should mean to us if Donald Trump and the Republicans decide at the last minute, like on the eve in the end of Halloween, if they decide, because that's the last day of food stamps, if they were to decide that they're actually going to help the people, it don't matter. Y'all done fucked with the wrong ones. Take a listen to what Cindy Noir has to say.
And even if on October 31st at 11:59 p.m., Trump still swoops in and resumes SNAP benefits to save the day, close the wallets. Close the wallets.
Ain't no money getting spent.
I don't care. Trump still has had a pattern of creating panic throughout America just to, in the final hour, resolve the panic. And then we all go back to normal.
Yep.
No.
Nope.
I'm not here for that anymore. This is getting old. It was already about as old as he is. It's old. It's old. Okay? And now you're talking about people's food and people going hungry. This isn't a joke. Our livelihood and our well-being aren't games to play with, and you playing.
That's right.
So I don't care if his administration comes in and says, psych, guys, here's your EBT card. You're good to go.
Yep.
Close the wallet.
Close them.
Close the wallets. Wow. Let's not close the wallets.
Close the wallets. We ain't buying nothing unless it's from black people. We're not doing this shit with y'all no more. Yeah, fuck you, pay me. No, we're not doing nothing with y'all no more because y'all don't know how to be humane. You don't know how to care. You don't know how to love people. You rule from a laissez-faire, robber baron-ass perspective. You don't get no more of our money. You disrespect us. You take our rights. You take our jobs. You want slavery back. Fuck you. We ain't giving you no more money, you economic succubus demons. Now, there are a lot of people out there who believe that, despite everything that we just shared, that you should just get a damn job. Why don't you work a little harder? And as I share on the podcast, we're not going to have time to do it today, but Representative out of Florida, Angie Nixon, went on her live on Instagram, and she talked about the fact that the majority of people who are working age on SNAP and on assistance are already working. And as Warren Gunnels reminds us in his post, the problem is not the poor kid who's getting $6 a day in food stamps. The problem is that the Walton family, which is worth $469 billion, Jeff Bezos, who's worth $247 billion, they pay wages that are so low that their workers need food stamps. Angie Nixon, in her video and in an article that the LA Times published on July the 1st, 3 days before the Republicans passed this big bitch-ass bill on the 4th of July, an article entitled, details who profits most from Medicaid. Employers like Walmart and Amazon, many of whose workers rely on the program. While they're trying to play in our face and make it seem like it's black people who need these programs, when you get a job at Walmart, they not only enroll you in the payroll direct deposit, they also enroll you in food stamps because they know they're not paying you enough to be able to work full-time and still or part-time and still feed your family. The article talks about how in 2013, McDonald's had a McResource line offering advice to employees about how, as employees, they could still access Medicaid and food stamps. These corporations are phenomenally profitable. Last year, according to the report, Walmart earned $19.4 billion on sales of $681 billion. McDonald's earned $8.2 billion on sales of $26 billion. Amazon earned $59 billion on sales of $638 billion. Yet their workers, the report says, including many employed full-time, have to rely on public assistance. And so, as who is this brother who said this? Barry Reholtz, who is the author of Bailout Nation. He says it's one thing to say we're against socialism, but it can't be socialized capitalism for the corporations and no safety net for the individuals. He says if you're a publicly traded private company, you've got to figure out a way to pay your employees a living wage without relying on the taxpayer to subsidize your labor costs. If you are the biggest beneficiary of food assistance, you are not truly an independent company. You're a ward of the state. And since we are caring for the employees, employed and unemployed, since we the people are the ones who have to make these decisions, fuck you, you economic succubi. We're not spending any more money with you. My pledge to my community is holiday season, ain't no money being spent unless it's being spent with me in mind. And if it can't be spent with me in mind, it's going to be spent with somebody who got a melanated situation. And if it can't be spent with me in mind or somebody who got a melanated situation, then it's going to go to a poor person of the white community who is selling something. Because what cannot continue to happen is these people wash and repeat and rinse and wash and repeat and do this all the time. And then we're just supposed to be dragged along with them. Like somebody who fell in love with a succubus who's desiring to take all of our energy. That can no longer happen. And so they want to play games. Find out. Come November the 1st. And in the podcast, you're going to hear some of the people. We're actually going to play this on the other side of the commercial break. But YouTube, unfortunately, you guys, we're not doing 2 lives today. What you need to be tapped into are the black people that are making change, that are making sure that our people get their needs met. YouTube, I'm sorry you're not going to be able to hear that, but you can hear it in the podcast. See how we do it? We try to make sure there's something for everybody. On the other side of the commercial break, we're going to highlight some of the ways that black people are showing up for ourselves. And frankly, as bad as this is, in light of even the moment of gratitude segment that we had this morning, as bad as things are, it's forcing us to be phenomenal. As challenging as this moment is, it is an opportunity for the best of us to come to bear. And that is exactly what's happening. As that sister I quoted yesterday said, they unlocking a new level, a new power level within us because you got our backs up against the wall in ways that we ain't had in a very, 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 very long time. You don't even know the power you are unlocking, friends. But maybe it's better that you don't, because it would scare you if you realize just how great we are, because we are realizing just how great we are. And quite frankly, we are impressed with our own damn selves. We're going to leave it here. Going into commercial break, 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK. YouTube, we appreciate y'all. I freaking told you. Wash, rinse, and repeat. These people ain't even got the imagination to try nothing new.